You're listening to DruidCast episode 167.
We are weeds, we keep on growing on these old forgotten tracks. We are the medicine of folklore, and we're always coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back. Roadside, the only place that let me be. Trying to connect my roots up to the big old family tree over me. The concrete towers over me. Over me. The concrete towers over me. This hillside, the only way that I get free. I try to release the pressures always trickling down the stream over me. Poison shower over me. Over me. The poison shower over me. for weeks like me. Greeting with all the refugees, always coming in from the sea over me. The moon is shining over me. Over me. The moon is shining over me. We are weeds, we keep on growing on these old forgotten tracks. We are the medicine of folklore, and we're always coming back, 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 coming back. We are weeds, we keep on growing on these old forgotten tracks. We are the medicine of folklore, and we're always coming back. We are weeds, we keep on growing on these old forgotten tracks. We are the medicine of folklore, and we're always coming back, coming back.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to DruidCast episode 167. I am your host, Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of every month by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. If you'd like to find out more about our courses, indeed, the new online version of the Bardic course that was launched only a couple of weeks ago, you can do that right over there at our website at www.druidry.org. Opening the show, you heard a beautiful instrumental played on guitar and bowed sautery called Under Sundials by John Samsworth, and that was followed by Louis-Yann, I believe that's how you pronounce it, brackets Weeds, the new song from the Infinity Triangle. And don't forget, you can find links to all of the artists featured on DruidCast in the show notes. Once again, my planned Walking the Talk sections are impossible due to the lockdown restrictions of the pandemic here in the UK, but it's given me a chance to catch up with some friends and inspiring teachers I've met around the world over the years, and I'm delighted to bring you an interview with author and teacher Jenna Tellendrew this month. Jenna is known through her books on Celtic spirituality and also her work with the Sisterhood of Avalon, and it was great to talk to her over Zoom. Now, a little caveat about the interview: this was my first Zoom interview, and although Jenna's voice is lovely and clear, mine is a little muffled in places, and I think that was down to me using the computer microphone rather than plugging a proper microphone in. Well, I'll know that for next time, so don't write to me to tell me, but I will attach a proper mic, and I don't think it will lessen your enjoyment of the interview at all. But before we go into the talky bit, I have something equally special for you. The Order's last winter gathering in Glastonbury was in December 2019, and one of the presentations was given by Dr. David Bramwell. It was an audio-visual experience told in darkness, with images projected onto an on-stage screen. David sat at the side of the stage, lit just by candlelight, speaking over an amazing audio soundtrack, and the presentation was called The Cult of Water. It was an amazing presentation journey that rightfully received a long-standing ovation from the audience. Well, David and his fellow musicians in Oddfellows Casino have put that presentation onto a CD due out in April, and he's kindly sent an advanced copy to DruidCast. It is wonderful, and here is a track from that forthcoming album. The track is called The Current of the Water Only Flows One Way, and after that we will go straight into this month's talky bit. I will see you after.
One thing struck me after visiting the wizard. If male and female need to be in balance, well, didn't I need to see a witch? As you know, the North boasts more than its fair share of wise women. I went to see Anwen, a witch I knew living in the peaks. She ran a shop, airy-fairy, in Sheffield city centre. There was something else too. I've been feeling the pull of Donna. The witch was unpacking a large box of scented candles when I arrived. I began by asking about Danu, but I found myself opening up about my nightmares, my thalassophobia, this desire to connect with the Don. She thought about it for a while and then said, from a Jungian perspective, water is the classic symbol for the unconscious. If you're having water nightmares, she closed her eyes. It's about Vulcan. Vulcan? Tutting, she marches me to the window. There, do you see him at the top of the tallest building? In the distance, I can see a figure at the top of Sheffield Town Hall. Roman god of fire and forge, the witch explained. Those are thunderbolts and a hammer in his hands. Sheffield's steel industry adopted him as their mascot. From a pagan's point of view, he has a lot to answer for. I was beginning to understand. A great battle of the sexes had once taken place here. God of fire versus goddess of water. Vulcan had been the victor. You really want to understand Danu? Be free of those nightmares, the witch asked. Then you must take a journey back in time, David, to the source of the dawn. Pay your respects to Danu. Make amends for Vulcan. Will you do that? Yes. Hang on. Did you say take a journey back in time to the source of the dawn? Yes, David. It must be a magical journey. To travel back in time, you'll need to make an offering. Oh, you'll know it when you see it, she said, and went back to wrestling with her giant box of candles. Early in the morning, the water towers just visible through the haze. Past the Dagenham retail outlet, down Scott Lane, Goose Hill, Baxter Gate. Down Bolby Road, where William Sr.'s great sand house once stood. A subterranean castle of carved tunnels and beautifully sculpted creatures. Until 1931, when the council could see no further use for it and filled it with concrete. French Gate, once the Arndale Centre, where Eckhart Selker's statue, The Lovers, was erected. A golden naked couple joined at the hips in the throes of ecstasy, right there in Doncaster's busy new shopping centre. Until 1988, when, amidst growing concern that someone might be offended, the Lovers were removed. I keep walking over the North Bridge, and there she lay, the Don. Descending her banks, I slip and nearly tumble into her dark waters. My keen bird's eye is drawn to a post 50 yards to my left. A little owl stands upright, feathers ruffled in the slight breeze. Instinctively, I look down, astonished. There at my feet, that old blue teacup, its handle long broken. I pick it up, clean it, and cast my cup into the Don's waters. An offering. And I am back in the summer of 1976.
The Talkie Bit.
I'm here on Zoom with Jenna Tellendrew, author and priestess of Avalon. And thank you for coming on the show, Jenna. We met 2012, I think it was, at Spark Symposium in Kissinger. And
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure and honor, and I've been a huge fan of yours for longer even than that. And so there's a little, I mean, we've met several times, but there's a little fangirl part of me always. So
Lovely. Well, what I'd like to do is ask you about, the origins of your spiritual path. Can you remember, was there a moment in your life, or what were the influences, in your early life that led you down the path that you're on now?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've loved mythology. It was the book that I kept taking out from the elementary school library, a Greek mythology book. And I remember at a very young age wishing I lived in ancient times so I could worship gods, right? And then as I got older, I was also very precocious and read everything. And so I got into Arthurian stories and went down the Mary Stuart and, just all of the novelizations and things. And so I had a very active imagination, really into history and archaeology. So all of that kind of culminated. I can pinpoint it. When I was 16 years old, I was in the bookstore and I found the Women's Spirituality book by Diane Stein. And I was like, oh my goodness, there are people who are alive here and now in this time period who are actually actively worshiping the goddess and gods, and that changed everything for me. So 16, I self-dedicated. I'm from New York City. I found a coven in Brooklyn, where I'm from, back in 1989, so pre-internet. And I knew that wasn't necessarily my path, but I was so thrilled to find other pagans, and so it just kind of went from there, really.
Yeah. What I've noticed, and it might, it's a big, broad brush, but I have noticed that a lot of people who have found this path are the kids that didn't quite fit in at school. Was that you as well, do you think? I mean, what I mean by fit in, what I mean by that is like so like the outsider, for me, all of my friends were into football and I couldn't give a damn about football. I was into mythology and music and that kind of thing. And that's what I mean by not fitting in.
I think the same. I was always into very strange things, but I kind of had this weird intersection of being really into school as well. So I was president of the honor societies and editor-in-chief of the yearbook. So that's its own kind of outsider kind of status as well. Yes. So,
and what was New York like as far as the kind of pagan scene was concerned in that late 80s?
Well, it was word of mouth. I went to Magical Child in Manhattan and, Herman Slater's shop. So there's a lot of entrenched kind of British traditional Wicca and witchcraft that was going on there. And it was through there that I found the group that I was with. So, again, I think because I was in a large city, I was lucky to find other people who kind of were walking along the same thing. But I often think back, what would my life have been like if there was the internet back in the day?
That's the thing, isn't it?
Right?
Those days of hunting down New Age shops and little postcards of connection and, the odd magazine like Prediction or, Pagan Dawn here and stuff with the green pages where people put their meetings together. It's so different now, isn't it? It's hard to imagine. I can't imagine what it must be like to find paganism now and just have Facebook.
That's right.
On somehow
and Instagram.
Yeah, and on some level, I think it's a good thing, and on other levels, I think I don't know. I knew the voices who knew their stuff back then, because they were often the authors, and so I knew where I stood. Now it's a little bit more complicated to do that. So your introduction was through goddess spirituality. Is that the route you went down?
So yes, it was the first thing that I found. It really informed my politics and my spirituality, and it kind of stayed with me through my path, although I do have devotional relationships with male divinities as well now, but I think the influence has stayed with me for sure.
It's something I've noticed, a difference between British paganism and American paganism is that the British paganism seems to have stemmed from very middle class magical orders like the Golden Dawn and things like that, and the ancient order of Druids and those kinds of things, and then even if you look at the leaders of Wicca, it's named after the men. It's Alexandrianism. It's Gardnerian. Yet in the States, it feels, whenever I've been over there and talked to people like Selena Fox and Margot Adler and people like that, the root of the paganism there is very much in the civil rights and feminist movements, and that's almost the source of where it all came from. So, it seems that flow is very much, that connection is very much there.
I think you're right, and the eco-spirituality kind of place in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little different here too, because so much of so Wicca is the first thing that most people encounter, one of the biggest things, and it has its roots in the British Isles. And I think in Britain, you're living on the land. It's part of, pieces of tradition are part of your culture still, even if it's not really obviously pagan. So I think you have a stream of tradition that's very localized, whereas I think we needed to have that alternative, progressive movement to kind of, bring that in for us too, for sure.
Okay, so tell me about the Sisterhood of Avalon. When did that start?
So the Sisterhood of Avalon, we just celebrated last year our 25th anniversary.
Wow.
So we've been around for a bit. And I had, when I was in undergrad, I had found a group that was a women's group, and they had a focus on Avalon in a very broad sense. And my undergraduate degree is in archaeology. And so I was really into the history and again, kind of even an outsider and the outsider. I was interested in the lore. I was interested in the book study, whereas a lot of people, I guess, are more kind of free-flowing with things like that. At any rate, I had moved away. I was living in Atlanta, and I missed my community. And so I put out a call I knew there were going to be other women who were interested in this. I wanted to meet them. I wanted to connect with them. We had just gotten the internet, our dial-up, America Online, and I was going to make use of this medium. And so I just kind of put that out there on message boards. I put up a website. And what wound up happening, where I was looking for community, what wound up happening is people were contacting me wanting to learn more. And so I didn't intend to start an organization. I was kind of, I guess, voluntold by the universe
nice
that
word.
this is a need.
I like that, voluntold.
Voluntold. It's part of the SOA culture. We talk about getting voluntold a lot in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way. And so it just kind of grew up from there. And the seeds of things that I had learned in the past, I had studied hermetics, got really deep into the Celtic materials, kind of built around that. I see very clearly one of the things that inspires me so much is myth. And if you read myth in a certain light, I found for me that a map of engagement kind of reveals itself. And that has really helped inform the work of the sisterhood and where it's developed. Why a Sisterhood of Avalon? One of the things that has always, I consider myself Druid adjacent. I've never studied with an order, but all of the materials that you study, I study. I mean, we're all drawing from the same well, I think. And but my particular interest, and I guess part of that goddess spirituality piece, is these enclaves of women that we see in lore, in classical historians talk about them off the coast of France, off the coast of Brittany, in Wales, and there are iterations throughout the Celtic lands. So I wanted to know who these women were. Why were they separate? They all had very similar powers and attributes. So I was really interested in what Avalon may have been like as a British iteration of these Nightfall sisterhoods, and the work progressed from there. So just a very small focus in a wide field of Druid adjacentness.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the Sisterhood of Avalon do, or, I mean, believe is a loaded word, but that kind of thing?
The concept of sovereignty is really central to our belief system. Defining sovereignty as conscious self-determination, inner sovereignty, sovereignty of the personal landscape, sovereignty of the landscape around us, and sovereignty with the cosmic landscape, with the divine. So we seek to build these bridges between the parts of ourselves to know the lay of our land, both the parts that are abundant and fertile and those that are in the wasteland. So we do a lot of shadow work, a lot of integration work, self-knowledge work, finding our true will in the world, finding who the sovereign person we are, and then proceed from there to be in right relationship with our communities and right relationship with the gods. We work primarily with 5 goddesses from the Mabinogi, from Welsh mythos: Rhiannon, Arianrhod, Ceridwen, Blodeuwedd, and Bronwyn. Modron figures, there are a couple of other pieces that get drawn in, but those are the 5 primarily that we work with. We work with the ninefold energies, and that piece kind of is the organizing principle that guides our work.
When you say the ninefold energies, is that influenced by the 9 maidens, the breath of the cauldron of in the poem? Is that where you take that from, the nine maidens in that?
In that case, yes. So the 9 maidens of Annwn, and I think there's a parallel with the 9 Morgans, or Morgan and her 9 sisters, in Arthurian tradition. So we see them as enclaves of women in the physical, in the realm of land. Then there's that underworld piece of the cauldron in Annwn, the 9 maidens there, and then I think also the 9 sisters of Avalon legends. So we kind of
the 9
engage with that in multiple ways, but definitely Awen is a huge piece for us as well. The seeking of Awen, the creative energy, not only of creativity, as in a bardic path, but also creative energy, how to create the life we want to live, how to infuse the work that we do in the world with sacred inspiration, that everything that we do can be something that's done in service to the gods, to the community, to our sovereign selves, and that creates a life or a way of being in the world that didn't appear before. So just a kind of a shifting thought around what Awen is and how it can be used how it can be.
That strikes me as very more than Druid adjacent. I mean, that, you know, what you're describing there is for me very much a Druid path. I heard it said that no myth ever happened, but all myths are true. And and with a capital T.
Yes.
And I've been on a bit of a journey with the Mabinogi myself, as
yes, you have
these albums that I've been making, and
brilliant, by the way, love them so much.
Thank you. It's something that I dreamt of when I first sat. My first experience of the Mabinogi was in a bed and breakfast in Bath. I was a sales manager at the time. You wouldn't believe looking at me now, but I had a company car on the road selling stuff to agriculture.
Wow.
I heard about this. I just enrolled in OBOD, and I'd heard about this book of Mabinogi, took it back and I opened it up and read it. And I have to say that the language, the overt Christian overtones, it didn't put me off, but it jarred with me a little bit. And I found it quite hard to access what the message of the Mabinogi was because of the language that it was down in. But I knew there was something there. It was just, it felt almost coded. It felt hidden and occult, something underneath all of those words. And that's what this journey for me has been about, making these albums. It's been putting it through a mystifier, if you like, and just adding in all of the research that's been going on and make it coming out for like a Mabinogi that is for our times. That's what but you obviously had that same, there's something more here than just the words. And one of the things that is, when you just read the Mabinogi as a set of stories, Gwydion's a bit of an arse, right? You know,
agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, but there's more to him as well, isn't there? And all of pretty much all of the women in the Mabinogi could be seen as, you know, oppressed and overridden by the other parts of the story. But again, there are hidden messages in their tales. So how do you connect with, for instance, Rhiannon? How do you view Rhiannon from the Mabinogi, and compare that to her tale within the Mabinogi itself that people can read?
Well, certainly, what I bring to this as well is I was privileged. I went to the University of Wales, Trinity St. David, for my master's in Celtic Studies. Right. So I got a sense from an academic perspective how to read myth. In addition to that intuitive perspective of, you know, connecting with those symbols. And so I think one of the things about Rhiannon that always stands out to me, and people talk with me about this all the time as well, is after she is unjustly accused of having murdered her child and is given this terrible penance to, you know, sit and confess her crime and carry people on her back. Why did she stay? She is obviously an otherworldly woman. Obviously, the fact that they believe that she fought off 7 nurses to murder her child in her sleep. She's strong enough to have been able to do that, strong enough to carry people on her back. Why couldn't she just leave? Why couldn't she just go? And for me, the lesson of Rhiannon in this is that, first of all, she is the queen. She had to abide by the rules of the land. She had to show an example through her being. And beyond that, in my opinion, and beyond that, what she says to me in this is, how do you turn the mounting block into a throne? How do you maintain your sovereignty in the face of injustice, in the face of great loss, in the face of no one believing in you but yourself? And she maintained her truth. She maintained who she was. And in the end, she got to put down her burden. Her anxiety was alleviated and she was reunited. And so I think reading the myth in that way, I think the gift of the Mabinogi, because it was written down so late, that the gods are not depicted as gods in the stories, they're much more relatable. And the things that they're going through, like child loss, domestic violence, war, fighting with your partner. They're relatable in a way that sometimes these fully actualized deities in some cultural myths are not. And so I think that there's something in there that is so relatable, and yet there is a transcendence, so we can see the mirror of this powerful goddess of sovereignty that underlies this queen.
One of the things that I agree with that, and she is extremely potent and powerful. One of the things I love is that if you look at the tradition of ghosts in the British Isles, particularly in Cornwall and those kind of Celtic countries, a lot of the stories will say that when you approach them, their feet are moving really slowly, or even not. And the faster you try and catch up with them, the further away they become. In the same way as Rhiannon, when she comes out from the hill and travels across the land, we cannot catch her all the time she's trying to catch her, and only when he speaks does she turn around and say, well, that would have saved you a lot of time if you'd just spoken to me. And the other thing with Rhiannon is that on an old interview, an old talk given by Ronald Hutton on DruidCast, he describes the pagan gods as being all hoof and horn and grunt and groan and smelling of the men's locker room, I think he said. And where are the gods of beauty, of delicacy, and and one of the things that I wondered is, where is the deity if you have loss in your life, if you have lost a loved one, and you are grieving? Who is the pagan deity that you can go to that is from the European traditions? And to me, it's Rhiannon. She is the one who will hold your hand through grief as well, because she felt that grief. That's right. That story.
And she's strong enough to carry you on her back when you need it.
Exactly. Exactly. I felt like I got to know her a lot more during the recording, during this whole experience. And so is there a challenge, or are there advantages of working with deity that, as far as the landscape is concerned, is a long way away? So you're in the United States of America, and these deities, are from an area of the British Isles. Are there challenges involved in creating that relationship, or is there, I say, even advantages?
Well, I think there are things in both columns. I've been fortunate to be able to journey to the places that are mentioned in the Mabinogi and connect with the gods that I work with there, and bring that back with me. But I felt there's something about it being eminent in the landscape, to be in the place where these legends dwell. It's like nothing else. And, being outside of that culture makes it definitely at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to things like language and tradition. But I think being far away and being a pagan person with different tools in my chest, being able to connect through ritual, through meditation, through techniques, I think there is more of a sense of, I guess it's more of the eminent divinity that I'm connecting with, as opposed to maybe the grunt and the horn and the hoof, because the landscape has a manifestation that is different than, I guess, that spiritual connection that you make. I don't know if that makes sense, but one thing I will say, and I'm keenly aware of this as a person who is not only not from Britain, but also I'm not even I'm Italian in my lineage. I have no, and I know blood is a question that comes up all of the time. And what comes back to, and I really believe this, is that culture is a practice. To find a way, and I talk about this all the time with the women in the SOA, to find a way to engage in a practice from the culture that we're drawing this inspiration from, because it helps us understand where these divinities arose, even down the stream of time, even into the present day. But it's an act of devotion. It's an act of seeking connection. So we have to find other ways to connect, as opposed to, taking an hour drive to the lake and, connecting with the eminence there.
Cool. I mean, even here, you know, I was born in Cornwall, and so linguistically, Cornish has a connection with Wales. But I've grown up in Sussex, and I look at the Sussex landscape, and I think this is my home. But I can't. I'm not from here. I'm from this tiny little foot of the British Isles. Yet, I have fallen head over heels in love with the myths of somewhere I have never lived, which is Wales. And I think that's part of the reason why every album has to start with Chris's voice. You know what I mean? Because part of this is an absolute acknowledgement of the root and the culture where these stories have come from, and
that's right.
You know, and without that they wouldn't exist. But you can't help what you fall in love with, can you?
That's right.
You know what I mean? You know, you know, and these stories, just when I started to read them, you know, with depth, they really did speak to me, and I think it's the same with people who fall in love with the stories of Greece, and where they don't have those, you know. On some level, mythology works beyond culture and beyond land, and is like it works on a spiritual level that is intangible and, you know, unmeasurable, and I think that's where that kind of heart connection comes from with it. It's a heart connection, isn't it?
That's right. I think it was Marion Bauman who said that she considers herself a cardiac Celt. Right. You know, it's something that kind of, it's not of the body, it's of the heart, it's of the spirit. Although I will say, when I came out as pagan to my dad many years ago, he's from Italy, so he's old world. He thought about it for a moment and he asked, so what's wrong with the Roman gods?
Well, you know.
But the thing is, I've been to his hometown. I've been to Italy several times. I went there as a pagan. I went there open to connect with, you know, this ancestral lineage, and there was just no answering call there for me. Yeah. So you're right. I think it's out of our hands. Maybe
it works on something else, doesn't it? I know a lovely Italian druid who was born in Rome, and he carries that around on his back like he just wouldn't. You know, it's like my ancestors wiped them out. Oh, you get some.
Yeah, it's quite the thing to be, you know, an Isman, you know, descendant of Romans.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah. But
thanks for having me.
There's healing there, though, isn't there? There's healing to be had. You know.
Indeed. Agree.
So I know that you make pilgrimages with the Sisterhood of Avalon to these areas. Are there any memories and experiences of those pilgrimages that spring to mind as kind of moments of aha moments? It's like, you know, you can visit a site and nothing happens, and then sometimes you go there and you just you just know something else is going on. Have you got any of those?
Well, there are many, I have to say, but I think the first thing that pops to my mind when you asked is going to the Roundhouse recreations at Castle Henless.
Oh, yeah.
Walking into that for the first time and being in a place that I have imagined, seen in, you know, studied, seen in images, you know, use it as a structure for meditation, to walk into that space and be in that place. It was just, you know, all of that kind of wavy line. It was really a displacing kind of a feeling. And so it was interesting. I wasn't expecting that, but to be in a place that I visited so many times without ever visiting was really powerful for me. So, yeah. And then I suppose in terms of the landscape itself, I guess Llyn is a powerful place, the Lake of the Maidens.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
And yeah, bringing women there and connecting with Blodeuwedd and her story and, you know, the fears that her maidens ran from to drown in them. You know, what fears can we release before they overtake us as well? Some of the reflections there, but powerful. Oh, wow, powerful place.
Very powerful place. Just for people who are listening to this and don't know what it is, that's the story when the fourth branch, when Gwydion is chasing Blodeuwedd and Blodeuwedd at that time.
Blodeuwedd, yeah.
Yeah, and her maidens went and drowned in that lake. And I went there for the first time when I was doing, you know, experiential landscape research for these Mabinogi albums, which I was taking. Oh. And the water was, on that day, I don't know if it's all the same, but on that day the water was black.
Mm.
It was
like a mirror.
You could not see through it, and it was black. And when I came to the edge, and I was there with Kerry, and I was there with another druid called Wendy. And when I went to the edge, I just felt this voice saying, "Come on, come in, come in." The women who were there didn't feel that.
Interesting.
But I just had this calling to just come on, just put your foot in. Come on, come to us. And I don't know what they would have done if I had done that.
Probably nothing good.
No, I don't know. Yeah. So, but having said that as well, I found it was just an incredible sight. Amazing. I didn't know it was there until I went. You've mentioned the 5 goddesses of the Mabinogi that you work with, and you've also said that you work very much with Awen as a force and an energy. Where does Ceridwen figure in the Sisterhood of Avalon as well?
Yeah, she's one of the 5. Although I know she's technically not in the Mabinogi, I do see her as the sow in the 4th branch. Yeah. So the Book of Taliesin. So yes, Ceridwen is absolutely the mother of Awen. But yes, so Ceridwen and her cauldron, and we have visited as well. One of the places we go is to Llyn Tegid, to work with her in that deep cauldron of that lake. So powerful mother muse.
And your next book, I've got your Rhiannon book sitting here right now. I'm reading that. The next book is about Blood Eyewith, I believe, isn't it?
It is, yes. It'll be out the 1st of August, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited for that to be there. My master's thesis was about the 4th branch and Blood Eyewith as a seasonal sovereignty goddess, and so I got to explore that from a pagan perspective in that little book.
Well, maybe we can touch on her for a little while and just say that when I began to explore the Mabinogi, and I saw there were some goddess cards I remember that had Blood Eyewith on, and there were a few other things, and the word that was attached to Blood Eyewith almost everywhere was betrayer. And I thought, no, I never got that at all. I got freedom from her. I got choice and freedom. And can you enlarge on that your experience with Blood Eyewith as far as that's concerned?
I agree with you, although I think a lot of people have a hard time with her. But certainly, I mean, the idea of, if you look at it from just a very surface reading, here is this woman who is created for the sole purpose of being someone's wife. She's not given any choice in the matter. She's a day old, essentially, when she's married off. And so when she comes into her own, when she finds love of her own will, her eyes are open. She's her own person. She's claimed her sovereignty in that moment, and realizing that she has a choice, does anything necessary in order to have that choice manifest or be realized. And, I can see where perhaps maybe she could just have divorced Llay. She didn't necessarily have to, try to murder him. But I think that points to the understory of the myth here, and that there is this sense of, we see this in the idea of the Oak King and the Holly King. I talk about Llay as the solar hero, and Granu as the otherworldly champion. And we see this over and over again in Celtic stories about, these love triangles with a woman, a goddess, a sovereignty goddess at the center, and the turning of the year, the turning of the seasons revolves around her partnership with one or the other. And usually the old king dies and the new king takes over, and then reverses itself. So sovereignty goddesses are a very specific kind of goddess. She turns the seasons, as opposed to the sovereignty of the land, who ensures that the king is righteous and whole because their fates are connected. So yeah, she is a powerful goddess in that. And I think you mentioned Gwydion earlier, and I think he did far worse than she did in the fourth branch, and he got a 3-year sentence where she was turned into an owl, ostensibly forever. But I think about an owl and the wisdom of an owl, the flight of an owl, the razor sharp claws of an owl who will grab what it wills and hold on to it. So she obtained power through her choice and her freedom. So I think you're spot on with that for sure.
Yeah. Although she was ostensibly conjured from the flowers by Gwydion and Math, I always felt that she was in the background saying, "Come on, then, bring me through."
Yeah,
because I always felt that that sudden appearance of beauty so much that Gwydion and Math fall to their knees before, and it almost felt like I want nerve endings. I want skin. I want touch. I want things like as this deity I have never experienced. And so I always felt that she was a little bit guiding that as well, and not this kind of victimized, deity that is portrayed in some perceptions of the story. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
And to end up, to go from the Maiden of Flowers to Flower Face as like this maiden, this beautiful maiden, and then to be changed into the Owl of Blodeuwedd, of the barn owl, particularly with that face of the barn owl. When I first came to this path, I remember trying to shoehorn a lot of gods into this threefold maiden, mother, crone thing. That I was, it was all down to James Fraser, Golden Bough, and the White Goddess, and those things. And of course, Blodeuwedd doesn't fit in because she was never physically mother. She went from maiden to crone. But that mixture, therefore, from May to Samhain, to me, it just that is where she exists in both of those regions, of the beauty of May and the flowers of May, and the owl and crone of the night of Samhain. And she was my guide during the bardic grade. In fact, my harp's public name is Blossom, but her proper name is Blodeuwedd.
Oh, beautiful.
I call her Blossom, but she to me, she is Blodeuwedd, and whenever I play my harp, I'm communing still with her. So yeah.
You have those 3 beautiful songs about Blodeuwedd, don't you? It's kind of a trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's where those 3 songs came from. They were written during that bardic period, and Oberon Meadowsweet, Blodeuwedd, and the Cloak of Feathers. The last one being, very much a modern experience. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I found about Blodeuwedd is that she changes form, which is what sovereignty goddesses do, hag to maiden. But I think in her case too, that she's a reflection of who she's paired with. So when she is married to Lle, the solar hero, she's flowers. Follow the track of the sun, right? Seeking the light. But when she's wed to Granu, he's this chthonic god. He's, the hunter. So now she's this night owl who is also a hunter. So her form reflects her partnership, which is, I think, interesting. But yeah, she's that threshold dweller that allows that transformation to happen.
And that is the beauty of myth, isn't it? It's that those are the hidden meanings of these stories. And I think the fourth branch is one of the most perfect seasonal stories. The way it unfolds, it's just wonderful. Probably my favourite. What's next for Jenna? You've got your book coming out. Are you writing any more? Are you doing stuff on the internet? And how can people find you if they want to find out more about the Sisterhood of Avalon and yourself?
Well, I am actually finishing up a 3rd book on Avalon, and that will be out next year. That will be through Llewellyn as well. The Sisterhood of Avalon, we're online. It's just sisterhoodofavalon.org. And then myself, I'm on all of the usual social media places, and you can find me by my name, jennatellandrew.com.
And I'll put all of those links into the show notes as well, so people can find you there. It's 2012 was when we met, and we met also at Paganicon, which was the last time we met. I didn't think that was the last time I'd be over to the USA. But hopefully our paths will cross again. It's been lovely to spend some time.
I hope so. Thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure.
Climb the highest of hills for to run from the world. In the voice of the rain, in these torrents for to drown. And lain among the heather, but a voice from the rocks. Don't walk alone, child, I'm with you. Don't pine for these years lost in seeking a friend. Raise your voice to the sun, raise your voice up to me. We will sing the chorus, your minor refrain. In these sad days I'll walk with thee, old lady of winter. Your face is in the trees, old lady of winter. Come mother me my tears, old lady of the winter. In your sight I'll grow. Tell me, will I be crippled by the dead? O'er the heather she rides, yellow-eyed out of day. Freedom finds you alone, yet you're never lonely. Friends and lovers may come, friends and lovers may go. She'll be at your side in this fight. Through every alley and path, tread quiet alone. Call to every dark place for to hide from their eyes. Like the deer in the wood who looks for she lives. From the bramble she calls, take courage to live. I want to go. I want to go. Old lady of winter, your face is in the trees. Old lady of winter, come mother me my tears. Old lady of the winter, in your sight I'll grow. Tell me, will I be crippled by the dead? Tell me, will I be crippled by the dead? I won't be crippled by the dead.
It was so good to talk to Jenna, and I love the Druid adjacent aspects of her path. I am sure we'll get her back on the show in the future for some more. After the interview, you heard Lady of Winter from the Drawing Lines EP from Faye Brotherhood. Now, I think these songs were recorded when Faye was a solo artist before she joined the mighty Spridgen Mist, and they are available on all of the usual download and streaming services. Now, people have asked me over the years why I play so much pagan folk music on DruidCast, and the answer is, well, that's where it seems most of the pagan music is written, but every now and again I get sent in pagan music from very different genres, and it's always a pleasure to play those on the show. So up next, there are two songs that are definitely not from the folk genre. The first is a song called The Commandment that blends funk and jazz styles from Melanie Bresnan. That was inspired by stories of avenging goddesses, particularly Macha cursing the men of Ulster. Her EP is due out in early March, and that is followed by some proper metal in the form of Ancient Ones from Arduk, who describe their music as tough pagan music for tough pagans. I didn't swear there, but you know what I mean. You know what they say. Nice. Enjoy.
Shivers down your spine when I opened at the reaching out. There was panic in your eyes when I realized what I am. I'm a force of nature. You are just a mortal man. Did it make you feel real big, trying to smother out my life? Bet you got a right. Control the way I shine. See, flew too close to the sun and crashed upon the sand. But I'm a force of nature, and you are just a mortal man. I am made of celestial fire, will not be contained, will not dim myself. I'm only getting high. I gave you divinity, worshiping on your knees. My holy life is to inspire. There is only one commandment. If you wanna hold my heart, you must love me as I am, or stay lonely in the dark. Saw it shake you to your core when I would not bend the break. And though I gave you all my love, you wish your titles in my place. You gave in to fear, could not take me as I am. For I'm a force of nature, and you are just a mortal man. Oh, I am made of celestial fire, will not be contained, will not dim myself. I'm only getting high. I gave you divinity, worshiping on your knees. My holy life is to inspire. There is only one commandment. If you wanna hold my heart, you must love me as I am, or stay lonely in the dark. You said that I was not enough, that I did not deserve your love, so you move on, 'cause I'm moving up to a higher plane. And it gets colder in the shade without my fire. It's such a shame you let it go to waste. You've only got yourself to blame, 'cause baby, my body's divine intervention, and I give you all of my time and attention, but you want submission instead of affection, and I cannot be tamed. I'm in the stratosphere. Get your suitcase out of here, 'cause you do not deserve to share the air I breathe and speak my name. 'Cause I am made of celestial fire, will not be contained, will not dim myself. I'm only getting high. I gave you divinity, worshiping on your knees. My holy life is to inspire. I am made of celestial fire, will not be contained, will not dim myself. I'm only getting high.
Okay, my friends, it is now time to step out of the mosh pit. I hope you survived that, as the music lets you know that we are approaching the end of the show. But before I go, let's have the results of last month's competition. The prize was a copy of the new CD from Wardruna called Kvit Raven, and the question I asked was, what was the English names for Odin's 2 ravens that Einar spoke about during the interview? Well, the answer was Thought and Memory, or as Einar said, Mind and Memory. And the first name drawn from the hat and winner of that amazing CD is Scott Sullivan from Wichita, USA. Congratulations, Scott. That CD will be with you very soon. The prize this month is a copy of The Mythic Moons of Avalon, the book written by this month's guest, Jenna Tellendrew, and the question I'd like you to answer is, during the interview we talked about the goddess Blodayedd, who was turned into a bird by the magic of Gwydion. What type of bird was it? During the interview we talked about the goddess Blodayedd, who was turned into a bird by the magic of Gwydion. What type of bird was it? Easy one, this one. Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win that fabulous book. And just to remind you, we do not keep your details and only use them to send the winner their prize. It just saves me chasing people for their addresses, and it allows me to post the prize right away. Well, my friends, that is a show. I'll see you next month for DruidCast episode 168, but until then, stay safe and well, and I wish you all, as ever, peace and blessed be. Goodbye.